Thank you for joining the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today is April 1st. It's actually a very special holiday in America known as April Fool's Day. Does anybody or everybody know about this holiday? Srila Prabhupada often talks about fools and rascals. I don't know why, but when I was young, I really liked this holiday, April Fool's Day. My other friends weren't so much into it. I remember I would call them on the phone and I would tell them the most outrageous story, and they would be completely shocked. They would say, "Oh my God, are you serious? That's what happened?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm just going on and on. And at the end, I say, guys, wanted to tell you it's April Fool's Day. And they'll be like, "Oh, come on, man." Um, but I was just thinking how us being in this material world and thinking we're this body, thinking that we possess um, things in this world, that is a symptom of April Fool's Day. And when we go back to the spiritual world, it's going to feel like all of this was a big April Fool's. So, with that, what good is the temporary, as the pleasure always comes with the pain? Only sweetness in the world is the devotees who can chant the holy name. And we're so thankful to Srila Prabhupada because he has given us that which is transforming us from fools to fools. And this canto in particular, the ninth canto, every canto has its own title. The ninth canto is known as the Canto of Liberation. And today's topic really deals with the importance of chastity. And we are talking about um, the importance of the chaste woman. The Sanskrit word that was used today is sadvi. A sadvi is the counterpart of a sadhu. I always tell people, don't be sad, be a sadhu. Or don't be sad, be a sadvi. Uh, it's very important to have these qualities. And let's look a little bit deeper about this word chaste. Where does it actually come from? When you look at its Latin root, the word chaste comes from the Latin root cas. And cas means to cut. So when you're chaste, you're able to cut off all unnecessary distractions. You're very much focused on your particular goal, or in this person, a particular, or in this situation, a particular person. The word kas is where you also get the word caste, because when we talk about caste, you are now focused on your highest propensity, and you're really zoned in, and you are able to work in that frame. So Kanya is very much glorified for her chastity. And Srila Prabhupada writes later in the ninth canto how different living beings become beautified. What makes a living being become more beautiful? So he talks about how the Brahmanas, the way to make a Brahmana more beautiful is when the Brahmana becomes more forgiving. The way to make a Kshatriya more beautiful is when the Kshatriya is heroic. And the way to make the cuckoo bird beautiful is when the cuckoo bird has a sweet voice. And the Vaishya becomes more beautiful when he protects cows and he uplifts cultural activities. And then Srila Prabhupada talks about the woman, what makes the woman the most beautiful. And Srila Prabhupada writes that a woman becomes beautiful by her chastity. So it's very important in society to have this quality of chastity. for the wife to be chaste to her husband. Not just that, but also the husband to be chaste to her wife. This is very much needed in the current world that we live in. Recently, we celebrated the appearance days of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya. And these two individuals were all about giving the highest to the lowest. And I just wanted to obtain a spark of their mood. So I've been recently watching these interviews of homeless people who have lost everything. They're very much addicted to drugs, and you hear some of these interviews. They say things like, "I'm afraid to look in the mirror because I don't even see myself anymore," and they're so broken. In LA, there's a place called Skid Row. Skid Row is a place where police officers don't even bother entering. And when I was watching these interviews, there was one common denominator. Over 95% of these homeless people came from broken homes, came from houses where the husband and wife, the father and mother were not chaste with each other. And broken homes truly lead to broken hearts. In another study, it was shown that 90% of individuals in jail cells, the felons, they come from single parent households. And even in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna tells Krishna that when family is lost, all types of community projects are devastated. So this was one of Srila Prabhupada's main missions, to establish the Grihastha ashram. Grihastha ashram is an ashram that's not based on looks, not based on how one cooks, but really based on the sacred teachings of these books. And it's really all about putting Krishna in the center rather than our material desires. When Krishna is in the center, that's when you get Bhakti center. And if it's not like that, then before marriage, when you like somebody, it's called a crush. Like, I got a crush on somebody. But after marriage, you really get crushed. So we really need to put Krishna as the center of our relationships. And this will inhibit and induce and promote the qualities of chastity. And there's so many amazing examples in our scriptures that really showcase the power of chastity. I just wanted to mention one, and this is actually a story of Radharani. Radharani was actually born with her eyes closed. She didn't want to open her eyes. And they tried to get her to open her eyes. She just kept her eyes closed. And then Mother Yashoda learned that Radharani was born, and let's go visit her. So she took baby Krishna with him. And Radharani kept her eyes closed until baby Krishna was right in front of him. And that's when she opened her eyes. So this is showing the power of chastity. And it's a deeper meaning to the Hare Krishna mantra. The more we can bring Radha and Krishna closer, the more we become blessed. Actually, if you rearrange the letters to Hare, you get the word here. And when you rearrange the letters to Krishna, within that, you get the word shrink. So this is a secret to chanting the Hare Krishna mantra properly, that we simply need to hear, and we need to shrink ourselves and understand our constitutional position. And this is another way that we can showcase our chastity to the mantra, um, and to Lord Krishna. And we can also dovetail this chastity that Sukanya is showing to her husband by our chastity as disciples to our spiritual master. Rupa Goswami has laid out 64 items to devotional service. And the first four are all about chastity. The number one item of devotional service is to take shelter of a guru. Number two is to take initiation from him. Number three is to serve him with faith. And number four is to follow the previous acharyas. So it's important to become, this is another way to become chaste. We become chaste to the parampara. And because this is New York, I had a very nice Srila Prabhupada pastime to share in regards to chastity. By the way, I've been recently introspecting. I think I've mentioned this before, but I've made a bliss list. I've made a list of what in this world will give us the highest bliss. Is it Harinam Sankirtan? Is it book distribution? What is it? What is it going to give us the highest bliss? And I've been going through it, and I've seen, at least for myself, of course, this is subjective, but I also feel it's objective. The highest bliss that one can receive on this planet is simply to hear the pastimes and memories of Srila Prabhupada. And there's a devotee named Siddhanta Prabhu who has been able to record all of the Prabhupada disciples' memories. I mean, this is really the work of the Bible. And I really encourage everyone out there, just if you can, read or listen to one memory a day. They're all on YouTube, they're all online. It's just so much nectar. So I'm extracting from that today. And I wanted to share a memory that really deals with chastity, deals with New York City, and deals with something extremely monumental. So Srila Prabhupada had a disciple named Toshan Krishna, who joined quite early. He joined in 1968. And he was a very dedicated disciple. But in 1971, he got drafted to the army. And he was very scared. He didn't want to go to the army. So he told Srila Prabhupada about it, like, this is what's happening. And Prabhupada said, don't worry, I'll write you a letter. I'll write a letter to the government. You could send it to them. So Srila Prabhupada wrote in his letter to the government that, I'm sorry, but my disciple does not have time to squander. We're fighting our own army. And somehow that letter worked and he got released and he didn't have to be drafted. So Toshan Krishna was feeling so indebted to Srila Prabhupada and just increasing his chastity. And at this time, Rati Yatras were going on all over the world. It started in San Francisco. Then Srila Prabhupada had a Rati Yatra in London. But this very important city called New York City was not able to have Ratha Yatras. And this was very dear to Srila Prabhupada because he started in New York and he incorporated ISKCON in New York. And he had dreams of New York before even coming to New York. So there has to be a way that we need to make Ratha Yatra happen. And 1976 was approaching. This is the 10-year anniversary of ISKCON, and Toshan Krishna was so determined, I have to make Ratha Yatra happen in New York this year. The problem was, though, that in 1962, the state of New York issued a law saying that no new parades are allowed on Fifth Avenue. So Toshan Krishna, he became determined, and he started visiting different government officials, going to one person to the other person, and finally he was able to meet the chief of police. The chief of police had the control to make Ratha Yatra happen or not. He was the highest officiating rank. And before getting to his door, though, he was stopped by the secretary asking, "What do you want?" And he showed the permit and said, "I need the chief of police to sign this permit in order to make this festival happen." And the secretary said, "He'll never sign this. There's a law that's passed that we cannot have any new parades. And I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go back. We can't help you." And at that point, Toshan Krishna closed his eyes. He thought of Srila Prabhupada. He thought of Prabhupada's desire. And he jumped the barricades, went past the secretary, and entered into the chief of police office. He put the permit on the table and said, "Dear sir, I believe you're meant to sign this." The chief of police looked at him and actually started chuckling and took out a pen and said to himself, "I don't know why I'm signing this, but I'm going to sign it." And that's how New York Ratha Yatra started. So we can see the types of doors that chastity can unlock. It really brings the magic into our lives. It opens the doors to the spiritual world. Even in other traditions and religions, this chastity is very highly respected. There's a famous Catholic priest named Jose Maria Escriva, and he says that when you decide firmly to lead a clean life, chastity will not be a burden on you. It will be a crown of triumph. And even if you look at this word devotion, we talk about devotion so much. The word devotion contains chastity within it, because devotion comes from the Latin divavere, and divavere is where you get the word vow. So we show our devotion by our vow, by our chastity. And even in my own personal life, I have really experienced this power of chastity. My spiritual master, he had a desire for myself to come out to the Bhakti Center and try to kickstart book distribution. So I was in New York in the winter of 2018. And at that time, uh, because it was winter, it was raining. And we had to find a place to distribute books. So we decided to go to the train station. I was with Virabhadra Prabhu and Kastuba Prabhu. And we would set up something called a spiritual station, because a train station will get you from point A to Z, but our spiritual station will take you back to Goloka. So we set up this very nice, attractive book table, and nobody was really stopping. We were looking for the first person who will get books from this spiritual station. And finally, one of the MTA workers, the metro station workers, he was a big guy, very rugged, had a construction hat on, he came up to our table and he said, I'm actually really trying to calm my life down. There's so much noise around me, and I'm looking for some solace. Will these books provide it? And I said, yes. And he decided to take a few books and he gave a donation. And right at that moment when he gave a donation, I actually got a buzz on my phone, and it was my spiritual master. And he sent an email saying, uh, to the effect, "This is simply wonderful." And to me, that was beyond magical how that happened. He even wrote it all in caps lock. And then that MTA worker, he started telling his other buddies, like, hey, check this out. And they all started getting books as well. So we can see that chastity uh, is so powerful. I mean, when we look at ISKCON, it's practically built on chastity. The early disciples were able to accomplish so many impossible feats due to their devotion to Srila Prabhupada. And that still continues on to this day. And Srila Prabhupada himself was chased to his guru, and just based on a simple instruction, he came out to the West and started this worldwide movement. So, with this power of chastity, we can continue on strong. We can continue and spread this mission far and wide. And we can go ahead and let these holy names fill up the blue sky. And like that, will be very much determined, very much strong in our faith and devotional service, and continue on as exemplary souls for this movement. So today I really wanted to discuss the power of chastity, and I thank everyone for listening. Hare Krishna. If anybody has questions, I can answer, or comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, boy, it was such a sweet lecture you gave, especially with all the poetic stuff that you said in the beginning. Yeah, I was just curious, when your Guru Maharaj said, this is simply wonderful, because he didn't know what was going on. So what was he saying that for?
I'm trying to be humble, but he actually said, you are simply wonderful. And I still don't know how he sent that at that time, but he did. I guess he heard that I just came to New York. But yeah, that's what happened.
Oh my God. Wow, I'm so happy that I asked that question so I could hear that answer. That was so heart melting. Oh my God.